Hello, my friends. My name is Adam, and I'm on a quest to be the most prolific reviewer of all time, which means I review literally everything: books, movies, podcasts, your dog, the bird in the picture behind me, anything I want, basically. And today I'm reviewing the 1993 comedic smash hit Mrs. Doubtfire. And Mrs. Doubtfire stars Robin Williams, of course, as the titular Mrs. Doubtfire, and also Daniel Hillard. Pierce Brosnan as the love interest of Daniel's soon-to-be ex-wife. Um, Forgot what her name is in the movie, but she's played by Sally Fields. And Sally Fields was just such a classy actress, and you wonder, why did they stop making movies with Sally Fields? Probably because, she kind of aged out of roles that people thought were appropriate to her, which is another conversation to be having in movies. Like, why do we throw away good actresses and keep bad actors longer than we should? And Robin Williams is sort of like the master. I mean, he was the master of ad-libbing comedy, and a lot of the funniest things are like these throwaway lines that Mrs. Doubtfire says under her breath, like especially about I forgot what the name is, but the Sally Pierce Brosnan's character, he's swimming and he's like jumping off the diving board, and he says something like, "Oh, it's easy to look that way with liposuction." And then Mira Wilson, who if you don't know, she was the little girl in Matilda. She's like, "Oh, your body doesn't look the same as Daddy's." And then Mrs. Doubtfire says, "Well, not everybody can afford a personal trainer." And it ends up being a very sweet movie about how you can really love somebody and they can really love you, but you're not right for each other. And the reason is because Daniel is this very impulsive, wild, and crazy guy, comes up with like these crazy ideas and always wants to have fun. But sometimes, life is not just about fun. So Miranda, that's the character's name. Miranda is the one who is constantly, worrying about money, being the stricter parent because she has to be. So I think that the journey of Miss Doubtfire, like, it appears to be like this guy fighting for his kids and doing whatever he needs to do to be with his kids. And that's kind of how it was marketed. Like, oh, watch this funny movie with Robin Williams where he'll do anything to be with his kids. And you can just imagine the voiceover in the trailers from that time saying that. But it's not actually about that, because the judge sets clear conditions on how he can spend time with the kids, right? And he he treats this as like the worst possible thing. Like, how could you make these conditions? Because their divorce is like pretty acrimonious. And then when he pretends to be a woman for whatever length of period, like 6 months, pretends to be an elderly woman and is basically stalking his ex-wife, and the judge says, "Oh, we need some more limitations." He's like, "What? I love them. You can't do this to me. I love them so much. I love them." You know, and that makes it seem like the problem, like, as long as you love somebody, the way you treat them, completely fine. And I don't think that's exactly what the movie is saying, but it sounds like it. So it's kind of like that trope. In the 90s, there was lots of movies where the families, because, divorce, widespread divorce had been like a thing since probably the late 60s. So it takes like about a decade to catch up in media. So this was like the time when you saw a lot of movies about families that had broken up and fathers trying to be in still have relationships with their children. The Liar Liar is another one that comes up like that. But I think in Liar Liar, the parents get back together. I think Pierce Brosnan might also be in that one. Maybe. Maybe it's a different guy. But in this one, it's a bit more realistic because the parents don't get back together because they're horrible with each other. They're not bad people. They're good people individually. And, you know, Miranda says something like, I'm a much better person. I didn't like the person I was when I was with Daniel. And now that Daniel is gone, I'm a much better person. And Daniel thinks about it too. And he's also a much better person. Like, he gets a responsible job. He has a successful career. And it's not even like, because the message might be like, as long as you get a career, you can have a relationship with your kids. But I think it's more like Daniel learns to be more structured and controlled himself, and that makes it so he can be he can have this career. But there's some comedy things that don't make sense. Like, they make sense in the terms of comedy, but they don't make sense in terms of actual reality. Like in the last scene, I forgot what the name is, but Pierce Brosnan's character says that he's allergic to pepper. So Miss Doubtfire sneaks into the kitchen and puts a bunch of pepper on his order, and then he's choking because he's allergic to pepper, because you can die, right? And so Mrs. Doubtfire runs across the room and gives the Heimlich maneuver and, saves his life. But that is actually attempted murder, So it's weird that the police weren't involved. And, like, I can understand Pierce Brosnan's character being like, oh yeah, he saved my life. He didn't really want to kill me, but he put me in a situation where I could have died. So that comedically it makes sense because it's funny, but like logically it would not. And I don't know. It's kind of weird to look at movies like this and think about Robin Williams and Robin Williams' legacy. And this was the second biggest film of 1993, only behind Jurassic Park. So this is a movie. Well, I saw this movie in the cinema, I'm sure, and all my friends saw it in the cinema. We saw Jurassic Park as well. Maybe not in the cinema, but we saw it. Everyone saw this movie. And you think about, like, because on the one hand, he was a comedic genius, and he was a great dramatic actor. But you look at this, and all of I think that Mrs. Doubtfire is probably the best character he ever played, because there's this humor, but everything is surrounded by this bitter pill of this experience that he's going through, getting divorced to the woman that he loves. And yeah, it's kind of tragic the way that his life ended, but I don't know. I think that he just decided that he couldn't take it anymore. There's also fascinating, I think there's two other fascinating things about the movie. One is the attempts to make a sequel to this, because it was a huge hit, right? And up until Robin Williams died, they were still trying to make sequels, and they wrote a couple, like 5 or 6 treatments, and Robin Williams didn't like the script, so it didn't happen. And then finally he signed on at the end of his life because I think that he needed the money. But how would you make a sequel to Mrs. Doubtfire? Because the whole premise is that he's doing this to spend more time with his family, and then it becomes a successful career for him. So he's famous. The character is famous. So how are you going to make it so that no one knows what the gig is? And Christopher Columbus, who directed this movie, he said something like, you know, it would have been good because in most sequels, the actor kind of ages out of that character, but like you would have the Mrs. Doubtfire would look exactly the same because, you know, it's makeup, which I don't think she actually would. I think it would look much more realistic now, and I don't think be it would be good. No. And a few other random things, maybe one random thing before I talk about the other interesting thing about the movie, which is that they wanted Christopher Columbus, of course, he directed Home Alone, so he wanted Catherine O'Hara to do it, and I think she also would have been great at this because Sally Fields is great in the movie, but she's not funny, you know. So imagine two funny people in this film. It would have been, I mean, Pierce Brosnan is also funny in the movie, but I mean, like, maybe it works because, you know, Sally Fields' character Miranda is supposed to be so straight-laced and serious, so it's just kind of an alternate universe version of this film, and maybe it wouldn't even be that successful actually but you know, I would watch that film, that's for sure. And the last thing is, when they were thinking about the sequel, people were worried about how this film would be embraced or rejected by the LGBTQ community, because I think in 2013 there was some health insurance, like some political campaign connected to health insurance, and they used an image of Miss Doubtfire to say something bad about trans people. And I don't know because I think that's really not what the movie is about, you know. It's about some person pretending to be another person so that he can get his own, like he has his own goals, and then it becomes a career. So he's playing a character, you know. So I don't think it has any reflection on those issues. I think maybe there's a scene where Daniel gets a bit drunk. That's the name of the character, not Mrs. Doubtfire, but Daniel gets a bit drunk, and he's sitting at a bar, and there's a really attractive woman, and he's like, "Oh, I can," and he says in his normal voice, "I can buy you that," and she's like, "Ugh, no," because he's dressed as an old lady. But I don't know. I'm not trans, so I don't feel like I can say much about it, but from my perspective as a non-trans person, I would say that it's not offensive. But I guess that's not for me to say. Anyway, I thought it was a funny movie. It wasn't as funny as when it was in 1993, for sure, but definitely a still funny movie. So I liked it. I'd give it like 8 out of 10. What did you think about Mrs. Doubtfire? Have you seen it recently? If you have, leave your thoughts in the comments. If you like my reviewing style, please subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to be the world's most prolific reviewer, and I need about, my goal is to have 200 subscribers by the end of January, and I have about 179. So I think it's completely possible. And if you're watching or listening on Spotify, please give me a follow as well. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.